I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to
He's going to break Hastings' world title.
For Mike Gosby! Oh, he's done it! And look at these two go! Mitchy Hoyer's going to do it! His first victory!
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been!
Hello everybody and welcome to Silverstone as we get ready for the British Grand Prix, part of the 2024 Formula SimRacing World Championship. It feels like not too long ago since we started out our season in Bahrain, just at the start of March, and only a few weeks later we're already heading towards the halfway mark of another World Championship season. It's the British Grand Prix once again, feels like we're here every single season. That last time round it was Dennis Jordan just 1 year ago who was able to take a win ahead of Colin Spork by just 2.8 seconds in a race that always seems to be a close one and an entertaining one as well. I'm Ewan. I'll be alongside Cam Rodger here for round 5 of the World Championship, and it's good to be back at the British Grand Prix, Cam. It's almost every year that we visit this racetrack, but it's a staple on the calendar and it always provides a good race. Hopefully we get another one today.
Yeah, it's always one that's got to be done. Fun track, and it's produced some interesting races in the Pro and Academy races earlier this evening. So I hope once again we see some strategy masterclasses from someone, because I think, Ewan, that's really been the biggest thing over the first 4 rounds, is that the tyre strategies are all over the place and a different one has won every single race. So it really is very track dependent and who gets out on top. But of course it leaves the championship looking quite interesting.
It does. Let's have a look at where everybody is, with Yannick Bock's win 2 weeks ago, getting him the championship lead. Owen McGorgy is 12 points back. At 13 back is Manuel Biancalillo, who dropped down a little bit as a result of his finish at Singapore. Yoni Simoncic did all right and has moved up to 4th now, ahead of Jake Dennehan, who wasn't there. Jan Vrankmas DNF'd, of course, and then you get to those who are really starting to fall adrift. Jonas Braxok in 7th place, and Dennis Jordan, who won here a year ago. Then Mitchy Hoyer and Alex Siebel to round out the top 10. Now, it was pretty good races all in all for those in the top 4. Maybe Biancalillo will be disappointed with his first top 5 since that opening round, or first non-podium, I should say, since the opening round of the season. However, no protests from that race and no penalties handed out, especially considering that lap 1 incident, Cam. It's a surprise somewhat, and it would be even more of a surprise, in fact, to see a similar pile-up here today. It really was an odd start to that race that we saw 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we saw an awkward collision. Grankvist went into the back of Williams, spun him around at the hairpin, and everyone just came bulldozering in. And one of them, of course, was Alex Siebel, who had his second retirement of the season and has since now been replaced at Ferrari by Isaac Gillison, which I think is going to be quite an interesting one to see how the dynamic changes there, because Siebel, as you see in lower parts of the top 10 there, hasn't had the best start to the season that he wanted, nor have Ferrari in general, so maybe this might be a bit of a turning point in the season for them.
Let's see, as we go towards qualifying, the opening times have come through, and it's Jonas Braxok who's currently leading the way. He's been on pole many times before, but he's still never won a Formula SimRacing World Championship race. Jake Dennehan is back to form, back on the circuit as well, which is good. He's in 2nd place at Sander Kalasatic Hilson and championship leader Yannick Bock, and he is in some great form, is Yannick Bock. 5th place in this session, but more importantly, he's been on the podium for the last 3 rounds. Finally got his first World Championship win by holding off Owen McGorgy to the final laps of the Singapore Grand Prix 2 weeks ago, and he's got good form around here as well. He was 3rd in this race 1 year ago too, so this circuit clearly is one that he agrees with, and one that maybe he could even extend his championship lead even further.
Yeah, that was a funny one last season, wasn't it, with how the race sort of went, and that was his standout performance. So it might be, but he's on good form in general, already up there in the top 5 as the first laps come in. Now the second ones come on. We have a reserve today for Go Team Racing. Patrick Sevitt, of course, one of your Pro Championship contenders. He goes up into P14, but the normal names up the front, Jake Dennehan purple in the first sector.
Yeah, certainly is. Let's see if we can get a change of lead here for Jake Dennehan. I wonder how he's going to return to form here, because of course he wasn't here a couple of weeks ago, and that has really set him back in the championship. Unfortunately, he's now 29 points adrift. It's not impossible for him to get back on turns, but he does need to improve, and unfortunately he does not. He'll left to be wondering now where he would have got if he had completed and continued on with that lap and not made that mistake through Maggots and Beckett's. It's all about stringing a lap together around this circuit, and you will get a fair amount of chances to do so in 10 minutes. Biancalula makes his way over the line, and he will improve, moves up to 4th place in this session.
Yeah, there's Simincic purple in that middle sector. Remember, the qualifying is always really close here because there's pretty much 4 braking zones on the track. It's a very fast and flowing circuit. We all know in the high-speed corners you can't really gain that much time, but then it's more difficult to gain that time. So close margins, but very difficult to get there. Yanis Simincic out of the final corner and across the line. Can he jump himself up into 3rd place? That's a bit better from him.
It is. Purple in the middle especially, which is more like what we're used to seeing from him. Top 7 at the moment, covered by different teams, which is a great sign for the overall championship. And to be honest, it's been a very close season so far. Top 7 also covered by just 0.2 of a second. Sometimes we do get some runaway leaders in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. That's just the nature of motorsport and the way that things can go from time to time. However, this season has not been an example of that by any means. It's been unpredictable. It's been very close as far as the championship standings are concerned. And so far, all of the races have been very entertaining, with some late finishes, late passes for the win, which have been present in pretty much all of the rounds so far.
Yeah, the strategy seems always sort of go all over the place in the middle part of the race, and then they come back together in that final stint. We saw McGorgy in the previous race in Singapore chasing down Yannick Bock, and just a couple, maybe even just one more lap actually, and he probably would have had at least one opportunity to try and get that overtake done, but in the end it wasn't quite enough. We have seen it in previous races as well. Maybe the only one was where it was a little bit different was Australia, where the same driver, Ewan McGorgy, it was a little bit more comfortable for him, but the rest of them have been pretty crazy. And with the amount of tyre load and the track temps and stuff that we have here, I think the tyres are going to be quite interesting. The drop-off is quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, even Australia was close to the end, wasn't it, even if there weren't any passes. So it's been a good season so far. Van Vuckers finally gets on the board here, and will bring us up to 22 with times, and he will be sharing the back row with his teammate as things stand. Not many improvements coming in here at the moment, but Matthew Williams is out there on a lap at least. Patrick Sevitt is improving, and he's standing in for Matthias Stair here today for Go Team, alongside Cosmo Prosciutto today. So a new lineup for Go Team. We'll see if they can get any more points to add to their tally currently, which has got them at the bottom of the standings in 11th in the Constructors' Championship. This is on board with Matthew Williams now, to replicate some of the form that's seen him drive so well in the World Championship, even despite his fairly sporadic appearances at times. He will make his way towards the line now. Be impressive if he can improve from here. And it is a slight improvement, although he celebrates by going straight into the wall, and that will be 14th in it for him. Sevitt goes over the line. What about him now? Can he move up onto those first few rows? Yes, no. In fact, he does improve slightly, but only to 16th place. Now the big guns are going to come through. Can Sander Callas get anywhere near that front row?
This is a bit more like it for him, and also Janos Brakshock. They've struggled a little bit so far this season compared to where you potentially might put themselves. Callas, of course, pole position driver many times, as well as Brakshock. Are they going to be challenging this time around? McGorgy goes purple in that first sector in the meantime, but we'll see the ground effect driver come out of the final corner. Can he put himself up on the front row or challenge for that pole position? It's a big jump to Brakshock with that 110, but he goes 5 thousandths in behind into second place.
So close for Sander Callas. Janos Brakshock can't do anything about it, as Ewan McGorgy right now is going purple in the first sector. Fantastic opening part to the lap to him. Now, can he improve any further? Well, Yannick Bock certainly can. He is now on pole position. That's sprung out of nowhere almost here. Jake Dennehan also improving right now. Both race clutch drivers are improving out there on the circuit, but it looks like a quarter of a second down could be turned around here from Ewan McGorgy. He's a race winner already in 20 2024 was so close 2 weeks ago. Can he take pole here for the British Grand Prix? He goes over the line, and he can! Just under a tenth of a second, and pole position for the British Grand Prix is going to go to Ewan McGorgy. Over the line for Jake Dennehan. He's only 5th. Over the line as well for Dennis Jordan. He will start his race-winning defence with only a 9th place start. It's Ewan McGorgy who's on pole for this race.
What a finish to the qualifying there. And Yannick Bock with a stormer to go provisional pole, but then by pretty much a 10th of a second, McGorgy, who was a quarter of a second behind coming into that lap, just nailed his final one, gets a 28.3, the only one with a 0.3, and gets on pole position.
Fantastic lap for Ewan McGorgy as he takes his 3rd pole position in World Championship history. Yannick Bock just under a 10th behind, with Jonas Braxup not being able to add to his 5 poles. Sander Carlson and Jake Dennehan are inside the top 5. Simoncic got knocked down a little bit there. He's 6th, ahead of Manuel Biancalilla. It's the 2 Ferraris next. Isaac Hilson ahead of Dennis Jordan, then Ruben Mercedes with a great lap to get in the top 12. Top 10 even, not 12. Martin Mergley is 11th, ahead of Jan Grankvist, who will be disappointed with 12 actually. Cosmo Prosciutto 13th, ahead of Matthew Williams and Michi Hoyer, who as well will be disappointed with 15th. Patrick Sevet got to 16th, ahead of Giordano Valeriano. George Sargianis is 18th, ahead of Scott Flack of Super Venturi. He's stepping in today, by the way, for Jukka-Pekka Laulu. Philip Puska rounds out the top 20 with Kostas Van Vukas and Stavros Mercedes rounding out the 22 drivers on the grid. Well, what a fantastic qualifying session that was. I think towards the end of that, Yannick Bock may have thought, I've got this, but Ewan McGorgy comes through and takes it. And what a record he's got now in qualifying. He's only started 6 races. This is his 6th race, and he's been on pole for half of those now. What a remarkable qualifying record he has. He's just got to convert that now into maybe a 2nd World Championship victory to go with his maiden one in Australia at round 2.
Yeah, that is quite some stats, and he's really bringing himself to be a championship contender. Of course, he had there's one race where he had a bit of a wobble. Oh, yeah, his first race in Bahrain. It was down in P8. Didn't quite get going. But then since then, he's had some really good form. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to be up there. Just 12 points behind Yannick Bock, who joins him on that front row as well. So it's a championship showdown. But you can't forget Manuel Biancalilla, who's only 1 point behind McGorgy, but he's down in 7th place. So it's going to be a very tough one for these guys, because it seems like everyone's been very inconsistent so far, really, with their finishing positions.
Yeah, relatively so. We've got 3 podiums being the maximum. That's for Bock. We've seen McGorgy, Biancalilla, Simoncic all on the podium twice. We've seen Dennehan win a race, and it finished on the road inside the top 5 in all the ones he's been at so far, but unfortunately a penalty at Australia putting him down to 6th place. Simoncic has been uncharacteristically mistake-ridden, I suppose, in round 2 he was. Anyway, didn't score any points. Can't remember the last time that happened to Jernej Simoncic. So it's been a very interesting season in that respect, but I do wonder whether that qualifying sort of symbolises where we are in 2024. Are we seeing the newcomers really take over here? Yannick Bock and Ewan McGorgy, are they going to be the ones fighting out for the title?
Oh, I definitely think we're seeing the turning of the tables, with the drivers leading this FSR World Championship. Of course, we got the likes of Simoncic, Jordan, Michi Hoyer. They've been around for a long time, but as every league goes through the changing of the guard as such. And I mean, Yannick Bock especially, and even McGorgy now, they've got so much experience, just not necessarily in the World Championship, and now this is their time to step up. Yeah,
it's worth remembering. Jernej Simoncic has been around for a while now, and he's been dominating for quite some time as well. The only year in which he hasn't won, he didn't participate for the last few. It's been 2022 when he wasn't here, of course. Last time he participated and didn't win was a good half decade and more ago. So it's been quite a while. But with warm-up about to come to a close, it's about time to start focusing on the race and what we're going to see here in terms of strategy. You were saying to me just beforehand, Cam, that the soft tyres are not really going to be the ones to use. So I wonder how many stints and what combinations of various tyres we're going to see today, because Singapore was unpredictable as anything.
Yeah, Singapore, the soft tyres seem to work. I mean, Bok did pretty much a third of the race on them and managed to use that to his advantage. I don't know if we're going to be seeing that today, just with the high loads that we have around here. And also, we're starting at 12:30. So a little bit earlier, and therefore the track temps will actually continue rising as we get through the race. So it's going to be a very very fun one to see what they do with the strategy. I think, as ever, it'll be between the 2 and the 3 stop, but it depends who wants to go long. The longer you go, the more consistent you have to be on the tyres, and therefore almost the less fighting you can do. Because if you start sliding these rear tyres, they just overheat, and literally in one big slide, that'll be enough to sort of kill your stint.
Yeah, certainly. So let's see how they manage it over the course of the day. As we look at the grid, we'll have to wait quite a while, unfortunately. I've got to tell you to see who's on what tyre and all of that kind of thing. Don't trust necessarily what you're seeing on your screen at the moment. We'll wait until we get towards the end of the formation lap and even into the race, to be honest, before we fully decide who's on what tyre as they make their way round on the formation lap. And McGorgy will lead them around, and we'll have a look at the starting grid in its entirety. It's a third pole position in 6 appearances for Ewan McGorgy, who takes pole here for the British Grand Prix. Yannick Bok, the championship leader, alongside with Jens Braxton and Sander Callas, who'll be delighted for Ground Effect, who are on the second row. In 5th position is Jake Dennehan, returning after a week away at the Singapore Grand Prix. Joni Timoncic outside the top 5 here ahead of Manuel Biancaluna, and Isaac Hillison, who's stepping in for Alex Siebel at Scuderia Ferrari today. He's outqualified his teammate Dennis Jordan, with Ruben Mercedes rounding out the top 10. Martin Mergley is 11th, then of Jan Grankvist down in 12th to back off his DNF at Singapore. That's left him 6th in the standings. Cosmo Prosciutto and Matthew Williams are on row 7 ahead of Michi Hoyer and Patrick Sevet. He's stepping in today for Matthias Stair for Go Team Racing, who are currently bottom of the team standings. Giordano Valeriano is 17th ahead of George Giannis, with Scott Flack stepping in for Yukapeka Lalu at Super Venturi 19th. Philip Pushka rounds out the top 20, and Kostas Van Vukas and Stavros Mercedes round out the Netrex final row in 21st and 22nd. So that is how we line up for the British Grand Prix, and we will start to have a little look and start to take some notice as to what tyres they've gone for. I don't know if I necessarily believe Biancaluna is on the soft tyres, but maybe he's qualified a little bit further down than he was expecting to. He's decided, I want to punch through the field early on, do a short early stint, and this is the best way to do it.
Considering his teammate is also on the soft, I think that graphic is correct. So look for them to make moves in this opening stint. It looks like the mediums is still the general idea, but a few guys at the front, they know they've already got the track position, so they're going to use the hards and go a bit longer. But considering out of all of these choices, we still need to find out what is going to be the best strategy today. We saw this in, as I mentioned, in Australia. It was actually these two again, McGorgy and Bok. Bok on the mediums got past and led after the first few laps, but then McGorgy was obviously on the mediums, therefore later in the race, and managed to overtake him back. So you never know. Even if you make some moves in that first stint or you lose some places, it might still come back to you. And of course, that second row of Brackshot and Callas, slightly struggling this season, and now this is a good opportunity for them to get some strong finishes. So there's a lot of unanswered questions, and I can't wait to see how we go. Of course, just one DRS zone here down on Hanger Straight as well, so look for some big sends into Stowe.
Yeah, absolutely. Sander Callas, by the way, has only been in the top 10 once this season. That was at the Australian Grand Prix when he finished 7th. Got a great chance to put that right today with a 4th place starting position as the two Netrex drivers get themselves onto the grid. It's been an alright point season for them so far. They're 8th in the team standings, considering where they tend to qualify. It's a pretty decent result for them. As we get the lights on and get ourselves ready, it's the British Grand Prix in round 5 of the Formula SimRacing World Championship. Ewan McGorgy's astonishing pole record, maybe looking to be converted into a second race win of his career. The lights have come on here at Silverstone, And we're ready to go racing for 52 laps. McGorgy looking to get off to a good start and block off his rival Yannick Bock on the way in towards turn number 1. And does so as the front three gets single file for the first time round. Yannick Simitic makes a monster start. He's already up to 4th, looking for 3rd as well. Jonas Brakshock stays on his outside and he'll get down the inside as they go towards turn 4. There's contact with Bianca Lula, who initially made a very good start and he slid his way down the field again here. Side by side still for 3rd place, but Jonas Simitic gets himself through. There's cars off in the background. It's 3 wide indeed in the background, but a great start for the pole sitter McGorgy, and Simitic is up to 3rd.
So much going on in the midfield as well. Drivers going up and down. Dennis Jordan's had a bit of a stinker. He's dropped down into 12th place. Hoyer's jumped inside the top 10. Gillison on his first start up inside your top 7. So loads of changes already as the top 2 have stayed in their formation up towards Cops Corner for the first time as the drivers are really starting to push. Bianca Lilla didn't gain as much progress on those softs as I was expecting.
Denahan straight through as well into 4th place ahead of Jonas Brakshock, who's going nowhere right now. 5th place for him, unfortunately, on this opening lap after starting up in 3rd place. In the slipstream now, Manuel Biancalillo will look to find his way through as well. An initial good launch from him, but there was a bit of contact on the start and he slid his way back down the field again. Side by side a bit further back. In fact, 3 wide back here with his teammate as Giordano Valeriano tries to make up some places. Kostas Van Bucas has made up some so far as well, and there's some aggressive driving going on back here. It's 3 wide indeed in this battle for what is realistically 17th position. Kostas Van Bucas has currently got that one and won that battle, but it's absolute madness here in this bottom 5 or 6.
Absolutely going for it, but to be fair, they might be some points playing positions a bit later on in the race. You never know what is going to happen because top 15 get points. And with some DNFs on the cards, 22 drivers on the grid, there's always some opportunities. Calm down in the top sort of 10 or so. They've gone into their single file formation. 0.7 seconds, remember, for that DRS, which will come into play on the next lap. And so far, everyone is just about within that gap.
Out through Luffield for the second time. Halfway round the second lap. Owen McGorgy leading the way ahead of Yannick Bock. And I wonder what the difference between these hard and medium tyres is actually going to be here. How pronounced is it going to be between these 2 tyre compounds? Because Yannick Bock at the moment hasn't been able to work his way through. Clearly it's not so startling that the medium tyres get through straight away, but is Owen McGorgy going to be able to hang on, or is Yannick Bock going to be able to get through? Will Yannick Bock even want to go through, or are we going to see a Singapore situation where the tyres are not completely obsolete but are less of a factor than usual?
Yeah, I guess it depends how you manage them and how you push them over the stint. Of course, the softer tyres will last just as long, but you have to drive slower and try and work it out. As in the background, we're still seeing Valeriano trying to get past. Oh no, there's huge contact there. He slides in front, somehow doesn't take out the net wrecks. And those soft tyres, he's trying to make some progress, but he's just getting involved in all sorts of carnage instead.
Yeah, it's Valeriano who thankfully hangs on there. Side by side, meanwhile, for 14th place, as Cosmo Prosciutto tried to hang on ahead of Matthew Williams. Look at coming through here. Oh dear, the Go Team cars are about to double team at Matthew Williams there, but not quite. 14th place for Williams. He hangs on again into turn 3. And Prosciutto will have to try and find his way back through again. Not been a great start for him, unfortunately. He's gone backwards slightly. Patrick Sevet has stayed where he is, and so the teammates have found each other now as Go Team really try and scramble for points. I've got to admit, when I looked at the team standings today, that I was surprised to see them down at the very back in 11th. It feels like they've done better than that. It's about time for them to start showing their pace a little bit and start showing their worth and picking up a few more points, which they probably do deserve based on speed.
Yeah, when they've had a good race, though, it's only really been with one driver, which is their problem, obviously, in the constructors. You have 2 cars, and that can very quickly multiply. But what's happened here with that battling is they've now lost the DRS to Grankvist up ahead, who's now on the back of Dennis Jordan of this top 13 car train, leading the way of the British Grand Prix. So that is going to be an important gap, because if they can't catch up now, the fact that we got DRS in play, and then they're just going to be slowly dropping back over the race.
It's all one long line at the moment, feels like it. Anyway, from right top to bottom here, Owen McGorgy's still leading, but look at that behind him. Look at the field he's tying around at the moment. It's not a huge problem in FSR to be the leader of the pack as it is in some series when you're at the head and you've got everybody right behind you, but it is a little concerning sometimes if so many people are crawling all over the back of you. Yanni Simicic, though, has made such a fantastic start here, up to 3rd place, and I think that was very important for his race. Not a great end to qualifying for him. I think the fact that he didn't improve on the last lap really hurt him compared to others. Owen McCorgy improved, for example, so did Yannick Bock, so did Jake Dennehan. They all pushed Simicic backwards, but his start has made up for that immediately. 3 places in one sector.
And when you have a slightly worse qualifying, so the background Brackshaw goes a bit wide. He's now got Bianca Lillo on those soft tyres all over the back of him. But if you have a bit of a bad qualifying, you have to make up for it on the first lap or two, and that's exactly what he did. So is it better to take that risk on lap 1 or try and nail your qualifying lap? You have to work out for yourselves which one you prefer, but certainly either way he's got back up into that top 3, which is very good for him as he continues his so resurgence in this series after a bit of a disappointing first couple of races and losing those points. And in behind, actually, Jake Dennehan has lost the DRS to them, so the top 3 are getting away a little bit.
They are slightly, but it's not a huge margin. Don't forget, you need to be a bit closer in Formula Sim Racing to receive DRS. It's not a second, but 7/10 of a second instead that you need to be within to get the DRS here, just to keep things a little bit more difficult to overtake and not quite so easy as it has maybe been in years gone past. Out through the line again, and very few overtakes have actually been made here in the opening 4 laps, but that's not going to remain the same for the remainder of the race. I think the first point of call here is what Manuel Biancalilla does, because he's the only driver inside the points paying positions at the moment to be on the soft compound tyres. Does he try and go somewhere with these? I'm to be honest surprised he's made it 4 laps just sitting in the group here.
Yes, so just as a reference, if he gets to lap 10, then he's doing a good job. Such is the way the soft tyres at this track. But even if he's not really making progress now, what he is going to do is he's going to get a big undercut, because surely he's going to be the first one to pit. And if he's got this gap to McGorgy of 3 seconds, he's just going to need a couple of laps and he will be able to undercut them. So he might be able to still get up towards the front, but then it depends how that is going to work out longer term with his strategy. And the field spread is quite small at the moment as well, so it might actually work out quite well for him, this undercut, but it also depends if he can keep this pace and not lose any positions. But the DRS, of course, is pulling him along nicely right now.
It is offering him a bit of assistance, and he might just be using that to sit and save the tyres, although he's seeing a defending hit from Isaac Hillison, who's got a bit of speed on the way towards Stowe, looking to the outside, and the red Ferrari now maybe into the final chicane. We'll have another look as well, but no is the answer to that, and Ruben Machede will just close up to the back of them now too. So at the moment Biancalilla struggling a little bit, I've got to say, and is not really finding his feet very well at all here, with Isaac Hillison already putting pressure on him. Is that maybe the soft tyres going off, or is he just going a little bit too slowly in his conservation of these soft tyres? The point being, I don't really see the point of him conserving these soft tyres, because if he's put them on, surely he wants to move forward and use the speed of them. What's the point in trying to stretch out this stint as long as possible in the group when you might as well have just put medium tyres on and got the same result if you're going to just sit there and conserve?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's it's an interesting one, because as you're right, because he still could have used the mediums, been here, and then still put on lap 10 to get a big undercut. But at least it might have been a little bit easier. Or he was hoping that with the softs he could have jumped a couple of positions, but he only gained 1 from his qualifying place. So it is funny, because of course that was Callas, wasn't it? Callas who dropped down massively on that first lap. So he really didn't have a good one. He's dropped down into that 11th place.
So positions changing further back, by the way. Sander Callas is really struggling, isn't he? 4th place in the qualifying. I said that he might be able to get his second top 10 of the season. Well, that is all of a sudden looking like it might be tricky here. He's already down to 11th. Jan Vankvist has not been able to move forward either or benefit from this. He's still down in 12th place for the previous championship leader of this series. Of course, he had such a great start to the season before his DNF at the Singapore Grand Prix. Side by side a bit further back as Matthew Williams tries to get down the inside of Des Jordan, another driver who didn't have a very good start. I wonder whether Callas and Jordan tangle slightly off of the start. They didn't start necessarily close to each other, but Callas has lost so many places. Jordan has too. Wonder whether they maybe interacted with one another, but that's a couple of drivers who are in trouble as a result of poor starts.
Let's try and have a look to see what happened way back earlier in the race.
Sander Callis, this is from on board with him, 4th place. Got a good launch, goes to the outside. Looking up ahead, by the way, Jonas Braksuk. There goes Simoncic, who's just flying, and he steams down the inside of Braksuk, who wasn't really going to let him have that one too easily, although he was just about giving the room. And here's the contact. So there's the contact with Bianca Lula. That's why he went for a slide. Callis also did. Hillerson goes through on both of them, I believe, and then he's just going to get freight train here. There's Ruben Maschini on the right-hand side going through. So it was that contact through turn 4 for Sander Callis that lost him so many places, and once the momentum's not going your way, then a lot of people will be down your inside and outside.
That was brutal, wasn't it? Corner by corner. He's just lost place after place, and that is where, what's put him further down the field than he would have wanted. So it just shows you how you have to get the starts right here. Doesn't matter how good your qualifying is, that first lap is so important. Look where Simoncic is, and now look where Callis is.
Kostas Van Vukas, by the way, is now out of the race. Unfortunately, our first retirement for the British Grand Prix, unfortunately, already upon us. I can tell you that 1 year ago, when we were last here, we had 6 retirements out of the 29 that started, but don't forget the field was slightly bigger back 1 year ago. Let's see what happened to Cosmo Pisuto here. He's now back to 16th place. On his own, which is not where we found him last time, just running a little bit wide through Stowe Corner. This is George Giannis making a move for 21st. Into the side. I'm going to guess that's Van Vukas alongside, and they both end up in the gravel at Stowe Corner. It's Mudzadis, excuse me, the other Netrex driver. Hard to know really where to pin the blame there, to be honest, from that angle. Did Giannis not quite hold the inside? Not sure. As we have a look at Kostas Van Vukas sliding through turn 1. Grabs the curb, and he's going to grab the wall at very high speed as well. Goodness me.
Yeah, not a great sort of 30 seconds for Netrex. That was all within the space of those 30 seconds, and now they are both one out of the race and one struggling quite a bit with that. So it is going to be the 2 Greek drivers, Mizidis and Zalagian, you see on your track map. Quite a bit off the back of the pack now, so they have a long way to go if they want to be trying to scrape a point, top 15, by the time we get to the end of this race. And looking back to the front, everyone is still staying there in this very nice and neat train. It's going all the way down to really Patrick Sevitt in 15th place, not too far behind. So they're still all keeping in a nice place. And looking at the pace, we're now down into the mid to high 1 minute 34s. So the pace isn't overly fast right now. That's a pretty average time, I would say. So everyone's getting a little bit of wear coming to their tyres.
It looks like it, but the drop-off not absolutely horrendous just yet as far as lap times are going anyway, although I don't think we've seen by far the best laps of the race in terms of fastest laps. Currently that is being held by guys a bit further down. Maybe Patrick Sevitt might actually have the fastest lap of the race so far, but it does very much feel like everybody inside the top 10 or so is sort of holding themselves back almost at this point in this race, almost as if we didn't have needed to run those first 9 laps, and we're sort of starting the race from here. It feels like everybody's still got very much a blank page in front of them, and a lot of this race yet ahead of them. It's only really been the start where positions have really changed. It's been further back where the battles have been, but up here in the top 10, I don't even think there's been an attempt to make moves. Hillerson had that chance a couple of laps ago, but he's now back to following Manuel Biancalula in 7th.
We need to wait until the first pit stop comes in. Who is going to blink first? Who's going to open up the door to the undercut? Who's going to want to go long and try and have the fresher tyres later in the race? So obviously right now everyone's basically in the same position, so that's why they're staying close together. Once you get all sorts of different lap counts, and literally even 1 lap difference on tyres can make a big difference when we get into the pit stop cycle. But then you will see some tyre differences of about 4 to 5 laps, I'm sure. And then there'll be a big advantage for the drivers on the fresher tyres. So it's definitely quite an important phase of the race when we get to that first pit stop. And Biancalilla, we are on that lap 10 now. I really would be surprised if he goes much longer, but I guess, as I'm saying, the pace isn't blisteringly fast, so maybe that's just helped him hold those tyres a little bit longer than we expect.
Do you agree, though, that everybody seems to be holding themselves back at the moment?
Yeah.
And the reason that I say that is because I know that I always compare to last year's or previous year's events. That's not necessarily a good idea because I know that rules change every year. But last year's fastest lap was set by Alex Siebel, a 1:30.8. He didn't use any soft tyres, which is why I think it is relevant. We're still 3-4 seconds away from that best lap even for the best drivers. That says to me that everybody's sort of not even reached their peak just yet in terms of, I know we're all full of fuel at the moment anyway, and we're not going to touch that kind of time until very late on if we do at all, but even so, that feels like excessively slower than we should be at this stage.
Yeah, the car's definitely a little bit slower than last year, but yeah, as you're right, that's a big gap. I do think later in the race we might see drivers get down into the 31s. Always a big slide there from Gillison. But yeah, I don't know if we'll get down into the 30s like that. That was certainly quite a bit faster than what we are going to see today. But yeah, the car did slow down a bit just in general. Some of the changes to the car. There's less push-to-pass power this year. There's obviously only the one DRS zone, and also the rear tyres are just a little bit more fragile.
Yeah, it's a very different look to the World Championship this season. Don't forget Alex Siebel was chasing the guys ahead of him, by the way, finished 5th that day, but only 8.6 seconds off the win. It was a very congested top of the order back then. Feels like we're going to have one of those races today as well. Pit stops have happened down the back of the field, and this might open things up for the top 10 or so, because I think the worry has been that they'll end up in traffic if they pit too soon. That may still be the concern, but we have seen a few pit stops now. Both Go Team cars seem to have been in the pit lane. Pushka as well is now a bit further down the field. So a sort of a trio of pit stops. Surely Manuel Biancalilla in that case can't be too far away from having to make a stop.
That's what I'm thinking, but although I think it's literally just what we mentioned, that everyone's slightly under the limit and therefore he's been able to hold on to these. But then it comes into the question, why did he go on the soft? Why didn't he just choose the medium? Because he hasn't really gained anything from going on that. Because he hasn't come in to get an extreme undercut either. So, interesting one, how that's going to work out. But he has dropped off the back. So, it's the top 5 breakaway now. So, this might be the time that Biancalilla is just going to start thinking about coming into the pit lane. Yes, he does. So, 11 laps on the board. Leaves 41 to go. I don't think he's going to want to stretch a couple of hards, which he has done in previous rounds. So let's see what tyres he goes on to.
Yeah, just saw that gap opening to the guys ahead and thought, well, it's my time to pit then. And he goes on to another set of the soft compound tyres. Well, I really don't get the idea behind this as he comes out rather awkwardly with Matthew Williams here, who will just have to tuck into the right-hand side. Thankfully, the two of them have worked out that interaction. And Valeriano will follow in his teammate on the very same strategy. Well, this is interesting. Manuel Biancalilla didn't use his soft tyres, really, in my opinion, during that stint. Now, does he have the chance to use them properly? Because he was just sitting in the group before. He could have done that stint on mediums, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, he was going for the undercut, but as you say, probably because he used the mediums, had a little bit of an easier time at that stint. But I think either way, the exact same outcome would be there. And now he needs to try and use those soft compound tyres and chase up to the cars ahead of him, which is Scott Flack and Ruven Macheda, as they obviously have... Macheda's come into the pit lane, but Scott Flack obviously just a little bit further back, so he needs to chase up to them and close that gap, and then he'll be able to get a big undercut on these drivers. But these drivers ahead, do they try and cover this off? Are they looking that far back, or are they just focusing on their top 4, top 5 battle on the harder tyres compared to the soft of Biancalilla?
Yeah, are they going to respond here, or are they only going to be focusing on one another? I mean, it could be a case here where these guys are focusing on making a 2-stop strategy work, as was the winning strategy and the strategy that covered the top 7, in fact, 1 year ago at the British Grand Prix. And Biancalilla going for a free stop, which you would imagine with 2 softs already used, as George Salgianis, I'm afraid, is off at the Magnus and Beckett's complex. And there are very few small accidents there, I'm afraid. He's still got the yellow flag out through the second sector.
I've got some bad news, which is Biancalilla got a penalty. So he must have sped in the pit lane, and that is going to completely change his race, because he's now going to have to spend another 20-odd seconds coming through the pit lane, and any undercut... Oh, there's contact there with Scott Flack as well. I think Flack was almost letting him through with how slow he was going on the exit, but contact, that's not going to help his race anymore. But yeah, he's really going to just lose any benefit from that undercut that he was going for.
Well, that may be another penalty as well for Biancalilla. Pretty minor in the end, so maybe not. But even so, that may well be the end of it for him. And a really damaging point loss in the race today as well. This is George Sargionis, who's been sat like this forever. It's well, not forever, but for a lap indeed. Now, how has he ended up in this position, I hear you ask? Well, we're about to find out. On the way in towards Magnus and Beckett's one of the Go Team cars right ahead. He's taken a slightly odd line. And he's had a technical fault, I think we can call that one.
Yeah, wheel disconnect. You always know when it goes full lock to the left because that's the starting of the axis. So if the wheel disconnects, it has no reference, it goes back to 0 and full lock to the left-hand side. So after a disconnection the last couple of races and then an issue there with the wheel, that is not going to be the way the Zalajon has wanted to start his debut season in the World Championship as Mergely comes in.
Yeah, still yet to score a point in the 2024 World Championship. As you say, Martin Mergely for Brabham eSports kicks things off. Now, this may spark something inside the top 10 because Biancalilla now is not going to be factored in particularly by everybody now. He will go past quite convincingly. However, Biancalilla is going to be forgotten about in some ways. Mergely, though, is going to be a concern to them. Now, he is on the hard tyres and he just come out behind Matthew Williams. Now, is this Matthew Williams playing himself right into the fray here, or is that a slow stop for Mergely? This may well be Williams knocking on the door of a top 5 maybe here.
Let's have a look. Yeah, Mergely's stop was slightly slower. So that's either some damage or a front wing change. Only what by 1 second. But that is enough, obviously, to make a difference with how close everything is in this World Championship. So yeah, from what I see, he just had a slightly slower stop, and therefore doesn't help his race too much. And if you look at the track map, look at everyone coming down on the bottom right. That's a whole train. Look at that yellow car in behind. That's Biancalilla, which, okay, yes, he's obviously doing a 3-stop today, but he is actually not too far off the back of that train already with just this first stop. So if he's going to be quicker for the rest of the race, it might actually work out. Let's see how it goes.
Janis Braxuk also following his teammate by pitting in at the end of lap 14. So Magorgi, Bock and Simicic stay out, but he sends his teammate to cover it off. Isaac Hillerson also goes into the first box possible for Scuderia Ferrari. Hoyer pulls in, and so will Braxuk, but are they all going to be behind Matthew Williams here? It's not entirely impossible. Patrick Sevitt as well, I believe, has already pitted, hasn't he, earlier on? Made a very early stop, so he will be doing 3 stops here today. But there's Biancalilla, as you say, not that far behind all of the stoppers. Here is Janis Braxuk out ahead of Sevitt, but Mergely isn't. Neither is Hillerson, neither is Hoyer. So Sevitt is involved in this right at the moment. But just how many of those drivers are doing 2 stops? How many are doing 3? It seems like these drivers, as the longer they go out and stay out here, the more likely it is they may only be stopping twice.
Yeah, we're still in the realms of possibility. But that's quite wide there for Simicic in the background. We are the realms of possibility for the 3, but I'm sure you would have wanted to pit for the undercut. So maybe we are going to see a 2. We did see a 4 stop from the race clutch cars and Grankvist back at Hockenheim, and it didn't quite work out that day. So maybe they're learning just how they want to work with this car. Coming to the end of lap 15 now. Hard tyres from Magorgi. Surely he's going to go a bit longer. Or is he going to try and cover off anything from the drivers behind? As that is Simicic coming down pit road.
That felt quite late. Maybe it looked more secure from his point of view, but that felt late from our camera angle. Into the pit lane, coming in behind as well, is Sander Callis and Dennis Jordan, who will follow him through. And now we really are on the last few drivers to come in. Simicic goes onto the hard compound tyres, so that's a fairly standard length medium stint, and maybe with a couple of 20... just at a bit lap stints, he might be able to get himself to the end on 2 stops. Maybe he will be pushing a little bit further and going for 2 instead. Who's going to get out ahead of him? Well, Biancalilla already is. Braxuk does as well. Patrick Sevitt goes through. What about Martin Mergely? No, not quite. As Jonas Simicic finds himself out in 8th position. He's just ahead of Mergely. There's Hillerson and Hoyer and Williams as well. It's all going to be a very shaken up order after these stops.
Tell you what, Dennis Jordan has some work to do in this race. Your winner from last season, beating at the time the reigning champ of Colin Sport, but this year is just struggling. Look at all of those cars up ahead of him that he's got to overtake over the course of this race, and he's a couple of seconds back just due to that that situation in the strategy as well. Difficult one for him at a 4-second stop as well, so maybe that was a front wing change also for him as he tries to work his way through this race. Lap 16 now, and we're left with 3 at the front.
Well, how much longer are these 3 going to remain out there on the circuit? The 2 teammates have got to work this one between themselves as well, because they're on the same compound of tyres. They may well go the longest, though, of anybody. McGorgy fakes it, and Yannick Bock does it for real. Through 16 laps, Yannick Bock into the pit lane for Evo. Now, he's going to be right in the midfield and sort of in the battles as well here, but still we're seeing very little separation and some very large groups still hanging about together, even in that group with those who have already stopped here. And I have a feeling that Yannick Bock is going to become part of that now.
Yes, definitely look at the train of cars that have found themselves, as you say, after this round of pit stops. It's just changed order. Patrick Sevet, though, is up behind the world champion of Jerne Simicic, and coming out though is going to be Yannick Bock. Can he hold himself ahead of Go Team Racing? Side by side they go in towards turn 4. It was crucial at the previous round that was able to keep himself in front of some of the traffic, and he's done so. That is crucial because now he can chase down up towards the back of Simicic. Of course, lost that one position with the undercut, but now has the fresher tyres, as we've also got Mergely trying to come through. But that could have been a bit of a race disaster for Bock if he got involved in this 3-car scrap behind him. And
did you see the aggression and, I don't want to call it impatience from Martin Mergely, but he does want to get on with this. Getting into the back of Patrick Sevet, just lightly there, lightly tapping him around the corner. Through as well goes Alec Hillison here on the inside. Great pass from him on the way in towards Cops Corner, and Mergely now is going to start to go backwards. The early stop he may well start paying for, as Matthew Williams has already started to do. He's now down in 10th position. Hillison will look to continue to move on forward as Race Clutch continue to lead. They must be going for a 2-stop here. What a change of fortunes it would be for them from their attitude towards the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim to this one.
Yeah, I love this. Every race, the teams are trying something different, not just on the tyre strategy itself, but also just everything to do with the tyres. What you start on, when you do them. And remember, McGorgy, he's going to be undercut here by quite a lot. Bragshot's only 13 seconds behind, so McGorgy's going to be right at the back of this train, but he's going to have much fresher tyres later on in the race, and that is the important bit. He's going to have the speed later on, like he did at Singapore. Maybe it wasn't enough for the win that day, but it's still a second place. And as you go for the championship, consistent races up towards the front are what you want to do.
Here's Isaac Hillison, and his march through the field continues now. He can't afford to let those guys get away too far, and now he's going to make sure that they don't. It's down the inside of Patrick Sevet into 7th position, and that was fairly easily done in the end. Jonas Braxop, though, is at the head of those who have already stopped. Jerne Simicic is next, then it's Yannick Bock, and I think the fact that those 3 are just out front a little bit further means that this sort of what I'd call train racing is going to be put to an end very soon here, because those who want to win here have already broken out of the train and they're already making their own path, forging their own path towards the front. It's those now who are in the midfield who are hanging out in a group. That wasn't the case during the first part of the race, where pretty much everybody at the front was hanging out together.
Yeah, and there's definitely some things going on with Jordan, because he's dropped off the back of this pack as well. So that's going to be hard. But yeah, you're right. So for the likes of Mergely and Sevet, who pitted a bit earlier, they're sort of in between some of the drivers who you may normally expect to be up inside that top 5 later on in the race. Mergely still looking strong. Of course, had a race ban last time after some incidents back at Hockenheim. But he's back as we get Race Clutch in the pit lane. Look at them following each other through. What tyres are they on? Hards again.
Yep. It is, and well, they've not even managed 20 laps, so maybe it would be another hard stint and then they can go on the mediums at the end. But this is the problem. Owen McGorgy has gone from 1st to 10th in this pit stop phase. You can maybe call it 9th because they'll get ahead of Grankvist when he pits, but goodness me, that's a big drop off, and he's already a good 7 or so seconds away from Jonas Braxop, who's leading those who have already stopped. Well, what an interesting race this is so far, and another one of those races in the World Championship where we just do not know who's actually leading until the very final 10 laps of the race, and even then we may have disputes for those top positions.
So they've got 18 laps. They do that again. There's 36. It leaves 16 laps for the mediums at the end, and you would expect they maybe want to do something a little bit more than that. Less than that, I should say. Jake Danahan gets through on Sander Callis, though, works his way up one car through the field, as they are going to have to do a lot of overtaking this stint. Very interesting how this is going to work out, because they are 7 seconds behind Simoncic, and of course a little bit further behind Brakshock, who's effectively going to have the race lead because Grankvist comes down finally into the pit lane. So Brakshock has done himself a bit of a blinder here to get to the front. He's on the medium tyres, but the important point is look at the gaps that are opening up behind now. There's one long train in that first stint, but we're now starting to see the gaps form as the tyre strategies come into play.
Yeah, and it's about not towing everybody else around with Slipstream and DRS as well, which he's been able to do over Simoncic, who's got the same gap over Yannick Bock. Isaac Kirsten's not in the group with Yannick Bock either. It's Isaac Kirsten who's trying to get himself away from the group now. That's going from Martin Mergley right the way down to Dennis Jordan in 12th position. Dear me, this is a big group here. Matthew Williams has suddenly jumped over his teammate. Ruben Machete not even involved in this train now, as Martin Mergley gets away. Patrick Servant really the cork in the bottle here, and you might be expecting that since he made such an early pit stop. He's leading the field around, or leading this group around anyway. It's about getting through here efficiently, I think, for these guys. As long as they don't lose too much to the lead, though, they might try and stay in this group for a little while. There's been a lot of sitting back so far, though, so I hope that some of those in this group do now start to try and at least to move forward.
Yeah, the issue is for Sever that he's on the medium tyres, which just don't have the durability of the hards. The hards, they're a bit slow. Or is it, first of all, see McGorgy go through around Maggis and Beckett's. That is not often a move that you see, but he's made it work, and that is a hard move. But Hoyer now is going to have to look at his mirrors, because the teammate, or Jake Delahan now, is going to be trying to follow him through as he come onto this hangar straight. McGorgy wasting no time at all.
Well, he can't afford to here, and his teammate is trying to follow suit. Jake Danahan down the inside of Mitchie Hoyer. This not normally a battle for ninth place, but it is in this one, outside of the first part of the chicane to give him the inside for the second. There's a bit of side-to-side, wheel-to-wheel contact, and Jake Danahan works his way through. He realises the importance and the urgency of this situation. Hoyer didn't want to give that up easily, but Danahan barges through.
That was some aggressive moves from the Race Clutch team, but certainly nice and well planned, and they managed to get themselves through one by one in just half a lap on Mitchie Hoyer. And that's what they're going to have to do over the course of this stint. They're going to have to be aggressive to get up these positions, and it's now going to be Matt Williams, and that's going to be an easy pass there down the inside for McGorgy, who's of course chasing down the drivers. He's 9 seconds off the lead, so that undercut really is so powerful.
And the run around the outside is still side by side there, Williams, but the run around the outside should be good enough unless Williams will respond here. Looking to the inside at the Oldsfoot turn 1. Indeed, he won't be able to. McGorgy will try and go through immediately here on Patrick Servant. Maybe was hoping to get through by the S's, but not able to. Danahan certainly was hoping to do that on Williams, and I feel like we're going to see two Race Clutch overtakes in mirror image with one another here. But it's going to be difficult for them to do so with Matthew Williams getting the DRS. Well, Jake Danahan's going to make light work of this. It's McGorgy who's having more problems. Down the inside he goes into Stowe, and he does work his way up to 6th place.
Yeah, you said double Williams, Race Clutch move, and they managed to get through on Williams as Seba goes down pit lane for another pit stop already on lap 22. So maybe not quite as high up in the realistic order as we would be expecting. And of course, another driver potentially doing that 3-stop is Bianca Lilla, but with his penalties now down in 18th place. So that has really hindered his progress today. And for a driver who's currently 3rd in the championship, just a point behind McGorgy as well, he's going to be losing big points today.
Well, it's still a very long way to go, and we just do not know who is going to come out on top in this race. Jonas Brakshock is currently leading the way. It's over 2 seconds he's got over Jerne Simoncic. Then it's Yannick Bock who's in 3rd, ahead of Isaac Killerson, who's not involved in a train. Neither is Martin Mergley. McGorgy trying to finally free himself from one. He's been leading them around for most of the race so far, but he's now finding himself in the pack, and maybe now will want to run on his own in a group. A group of him, just himself, I suppose, as he's running in 6th position. Hard to know where this race is going to go from here, though, because everybody's seen how powerful the undercut is. It's got Jonas Braksuk's lead, but if they're all pitting the same amount of times, then it's going to be difficult to overhaul Braksuk here. He's holding the advantage, and he will know just exactly how powerful this undercut is, and he'll want to preserve his lead by utilising that as best he can.
Always his battles with Hoyer and Williams. Is that round the outside from Michi Hoyer to try and make that move, and he gets it done. Nice clean one. It's a difficult overtake actually at Stowe because it's not really a big braking zone, but Williams is struggling now because he slides, and Callis is going to get up the inside at the final corner, and this is potentially the floodgates for Williams to come down pit lane fairly shortly, obviously on the one of the earlier stoppers.
Yeah, so once one goes through, another will try and follow, especially on someone like Matthew Williams here, who's a bit of a sitting duck right now. Dennis Jordan looks to the inside there, can't quite do it. This is a pass that Jordan really needs to make very quickly indeed if he wants to salvage something from this race and get a good result. He needs to be through on Matthew Williams here right now. Williams goes defensive on the left-hand side there down the Wellington straight. Into Brooklands goes Jordan, though. The added grip on those tyres is obvious. He'll get the inside for Luffield, and he should be into the top 10.
Yeah, slides through nicely. Williams gave it his best defence there, but he just didn't have the tyre grip to hold alongside far enough to make Dennis think about backing out of it. So that is the 27 through into the top 10. But he does have some big gaps up ahead that he really needs to close down. He should still be on, obviously, for a decent points haul today, but clearly just not quite on that pace that he had last year to get the win. As it's looking like in the top lot, the only people with DRS is Denahan and Callas. So, actually, talking of Callas, he's going to be diving it down the inside of Michi Hoyer in towards Stowe corner, makes that move. So he still has some pace in this race, but he goes wide, and Hoyer will come back in towards the chicane.
Down the outside goes Michi Hoyer, and no, Callas breaks later, and so will get himself through. Will he have the exit, though? He parks it on the exit of the corner and should hold on to what will become 8th place with Matthew Williams dropping down the field in the pit lane. Where's he going to come out in relation to those who have already stopped here? Patrick Sevitt is the first we were focusing on. Williams is quite late in the box here, so wait for him to pull in, but Sevitt should clear him easily here. Now, 2 very early stops, admittedly, from the Go Team driver, but just make you wonder what he can do here today, Patrick Sevitt. He's in for Matthias Ster and making an impression so far.
Yeah, he started pro very strong. I think it was 3 second places in a row until his unfortunate DNF at Singapore last time. Another strong result today, so it's not like he's a bad driver. He knows what he's doing, and generally there is a bit of overlap between the top of pro and the bottom of WC, and he's holding his own very nicely there for Go Team as he tries to work his way up into the point scoring positions by the end of this race. And we're seeing the race clutch duo now. They pulled away massively from the battle behind. And they've now got Martin Mergely, who's looking good. Remember Brabham, 2 cars up inside the top 5. They're having a strong race as well. So you never know how this one is going to end.
Yeah, you certainly don't. And we've got more than half of this race remaining to figure out who's going to be on top or not. And Ewan McGorgy wants to make sure it's him. Down the inside at Stowe corner, he makes it work. Martin Mergely has no response. And now he's being sandwiched together by these 2 race clutch drivers either side of him. It's going to be Jake Denahan next on the list, and I'd imagine that Denahan will try and follow through immediately here. He was even looking maybe at one stage like he would get that run out the final corner into turn 1. Well, that's not quite going to happen, but Mergely surely is going to be eaten up on the Wellington straight coming up in a few moments' time.
Yeah, he's getting close to turn 1. Maybe was thinking about it to dive into 3, but just had to back out with the dirty air. Let's see if he gets the run. A little bit of a wiggle from Bradshaw, but he actually gets a pretty good run still. So Jake being a little bit more patient on the throttle, but now, Bradshaw's not even using the push to pass there. Nice easy move from Jake Denahan to follow his teammate through. So we're not looking too bad actually for Race Clutch. They've already gained about 3 seconds, plus a lot of positions already. They cleared the traffic fairly comfortably as well. It's not like they had these battles that lost them seconds after seconds. So Race Clutch is still very much in this later on in the race, because surely they're going to the mediums in the final stint where we might still see some hards from drivers ahead. So they're going to have some pace. They're just going to have to work for it.
Well, do you think that they're going to be the only ones on a 2-stop here today and everybody else is on 3? Do you think they'll be on their own in that respect, or do you think that they're going for the same strategy of everybody else and they are legitimately fighting their way through to the front right now and are legitimately, realistically, 7 seconds off the lead, which is where they are right now?
looking how long these guys ahead of them went, though, on that first stint on the mediums, I think these guys still looking good for that 2-stop themselves. The only reason why rFactor went further is because they started on the hards rather than the medium. So I still think it's a straight strategy battle as such, rather than a stops battle. But the thing for them is that they're just going to have to keep pushing for the whole race. Whereas when you get the track position early, for instance like Brackstock, he's having a lot more of a calm race. So in theory, there's less risk with that strategy.
Well, unfortunately, as far as championship contenders go, Manuel Biancalilla has not had a very good day at all. Third in the standings coming into today, but a penalty has put him down to 20th place. He'll be scrapping for minor points, but is this a day where his realistic championship ambitions came to an end? As Yannick Bock, Owen McGorgy, who are both ahead of him, and Jerne Simoncic, Jake Dennehan, who are the two behind him, are all up there at the moment inside the top 6 positions. It's been a bad day to have an off day for Manuel Biancalilla.
Certainly has. He can't have a bad race, unfortunately, in this championship. Having said that, Simoncic did, but then he is also quite far back in the championship himself. So Biancalilla will be joining him a little bit lower down in the standings. And I think it is one of those situations, though, where we do have 10 races. So if he has one bad race, if he can make those other 9 good, he should still have a very strong position. Just whether he can fight for the championship itself, with looking how good the race clutch cars are, then of course the Rafa and the Evo of Simoncic and Bock, and maybe Brackshock, you never know, might turn his season around.
You just never know. I mean, a win here would really kickstart it. It's where he's currently sitting right now.
It would be his first win as well, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. He's had 5 pole positions but no wins, which is a remarkable record in fact, but a lot of podiums as well. Still wasn't able to quite do it at Bahrain, where he was on the podium earlier on this season, but a couple of outside the top 10 finishes in rounds 2 and 3 has set him back a little bit in the championship. You know, we're in the first half of the standings, so I don't feel like it's too late for someone to suddenly rise through the standings and get involved here, because as you say, we're not exactly counting out Simoncic, despite the fact he's nearly a whole race wins value off of the championship lead.
Oh, you can't count out a 4-time champion, can you? That is why, because you know how consistent he is. He can go the rest of the season and finishing on the podium every race. We know he's got the capabilities of doing that. And if he does, then the likes of McGorgy, who's had a 6th and 8th place here and there, the likes of Bock as well. He had one race where he struggled a little bit back in Bahrain. So it can be done where these drivers drop off the podium. And if Simoncic can have that consistency, then he will definitely be up there. Also with the point system that we have, and the difference in even just 1st and 4th is 10 points. The gaps can change around very quickly.
Well, this is the battle for 9th position at the moment, with Michi Hoyer leading the way as Jonas Brackstock comes in on the halfway mark of this race just afterwards, as we get into the second half of the British Grand Prix, making sure that he doesn't get undercut by his main rivals, and he's going to do that by going on the attack and going on the undercut himself. He'll make sure he doesn't end up in traffic, but I don't think he will, with everybody streaming past him. He goes on the mediums again. That won't be, though, his last stop in the day. Neither will it be for his teammate Martin Mergley on the hard compound tyres. Different and interesting to see the differences between the two teammates. Jonas Brackstock ends out in 10th place. He's even ahead of Patrick Sevet, actually, which is great news for him. Now, is he in the minority or the majority here? Well, meanwhile, Owen McGorgy finds himself down the inside of Hillickson. He's up to 3rd place now.
And this is perfect timing, because we're at the point of the stint where the hard tyres are going to keep consistent, where the mediums are going to start dropping off now. Big defence to the inside there from Hillickson, but I don't think it's going to work, because Jake Dennehan is going to get through on the inside line at Copse Corner, and 2 places in pretty much 2 corners as well for Race Clutch. They're just following themselves through, and it is working out perfectly. Every time they've got to the car ahead, they're getting through very efficiently. So this is a tricky stint for them, because they've had to overtake about 10 cars, pretty much, or about 8 cars to get to where they are. But they are now not too far behind, just 3 seconds off Jerne Simoncic despite all of that, and they will still keep pace for a good few laps longer. Expect them to go, well, not just expect them, they need to go till about lap 36. They've still got 8 laps.
Certainly do, and Isaac Hurson comes into the pit lane here as well for Ferrari. pulls into the very first box and will get himself some new medium compound tyres. That will be his penultimate stop of the day. And anybody, well, I was going to say anybody going on the hard from this point will be going to the end, but that might even be a stretch at this stage, mightn't it? I'm trying to work that out because Martin Merkley's just put the hards on it. Is he going to be one of those trying to go to the end from here?
Trying to think.
Quite a long way, isn't it, really?
Would that be 24 laps?
Yeah.
I would say it's a bit too much in terms of keeping pace. I wouldn't be surprised if someone does try about 20 laps on the hards, but 24? I would say it's a little bit too much to keep the pace.
I think so. I mean, if he gets... he's going to struggle to even get the lead, isn't he, and defend with that, so fair enough. Grankvist just slides his way through. I think he's doing a two-stop here today. He ran very long in the opening stint of the race. What's happened back here to him, though? He hasn't spun around, has he? Trying to overtake one of the Ferraris. Oh, he has done at Brooklands. Jan Grankvist wasn't in a bad position at all, but unfortunately, that spin is not going to help him at all. He was down the inside of Dennis Jordan there for 7th position, as his teammate Isaac Kirsten had just dropped in behind them after that pit stop. Well, Grankvist now is going to be in a bit of trouble. Jonas Braxot will be straight through on him into 8th position. Those two have both got one stop remaining by the looks of things, and Braxot's already ahead.
I tell you what, I'm liking Braxot for this race, but let's see how it goes. Of course, on a 3-stop strategy, though, we are expecting potentially Race Clutch to just be doing the 2. So he's going to have to catch up because they now all have 1 stop left in this race. So he's now turned around, so he's got the 10 seconds to catch up over the course of the next 22 laps. That's half a second a lap he needs to the end of the race on average. So let's see how this one works out. He's going to have to push hard, but he has got a lot of clear air to do it.
Yeah, I think the first stop, he really played it as well as he could, but now it's really out of his hands in some ways. He does need to do his thing and drive as quickly as possible in terms of what he can do, but in some ways, the strategy has written itself here, and it will get him to where it gets him. There may not be an awful lot he can do about where he ends up in this race, even if he drives perfectly from here to the conclusion of the British Grand Prix. 22 laps to go when we get to the line here. Yoni Simoncic is leading ahead of Yannick Bock, then Owen McGorgy in third, ahead of his teammate Jake Dennehan, and Sander Callas, who's recovered from a very sluggish start, down to 11th at worst. He's now inside the top 5 again, maybe competing for those top 10 places for the second time in the 2024 season. Through Stowe Corner now for the 2 Race Clutch cars. They'll continue to follow the 2 leaders. Wonder what Yannick Bock and Yoni Simoncic are going to do in terms of working it out with one another, because they're on a very similar strategy. Well, we may have one of our answers there as behind Sander Callas comes into the pit lane, possibly for the final time today, although there's still 22 laps to go here.
Yes, Callas is another one of those drivers to obviously be a little bit different on the strategy. Let's see what he is going to do. If he takes the hards, you might think about it, but no, he's going to the medium, so he's going to be very fast to the end. But I'm not 100% convinced in terms, again, the top positions, but let's see how it works, because we definitely have a 2 versus 3 stop, potentially with the top 4, maybe top 6 going towards that, and then the drivers in behind trying to chase him down. So this strat from Dennis Jordan might actually end up working. Now the fact that he's ahead of these 3-stop drivers, but he needs to hold on to them before his pit stop, really.
Dennis Jordan here, still just in behind Michi Hoyer. All in the hard compounded tyres, by the way, inside the top 6 positions, with still 21 laps to go of this race. Jonas Braxot, the first of those not on the hard compound tyres, and will need to start racing his way through some of these guys. The advantage I think he's got, though, is that he will be on newer and possibly better tyres for the remainder of this race. He is, right now, it'll be about making moves for him, I think, but he's got to be wary of the undercut as well. I think they'll all pit in front of him and before him as well, so gain a bit of that time back, maybe gain some of those positions back, and then he's got to really race his way through. He's got to make those overtakes, and that's what it's going to come down to at the end here, because it looks to me as if the top 6 are all going for 2-stop races, and Braxot will of course be going for a 3. We know that, but it's just about how many the guys ahead of him are going to make.
And the fact that we believe it's the top 6 all going for this makes it very interesting, because if it was just Yerne and Yannick, and everyone in behind was on the 3-stop, they would all be behind Brackstock now, and there would be a 10-second clear air gap for Brackstock to push. But instead, Brackstock now has 4 cars to overtake before he even can think about challenging Bok and Yerne for the race win. So because there's these 6-car group doing this, that's going to slow him down effectively for what his race time could be. So that's just a showing how your strategy can be affected by what other people do. As I think Yannick Bok is going to be thinking about going for a move shortly.
That's what I mentioned earlier. Brackstock probably is going to be able to, that strategy is going to get him where it gets him, if you see what I mean. And the battle just up ahead of him, by the way, there won't have helped. Michi Hoyer just got overtook there by Dennis Jordan, and Jonas Brackstock had to sort of sit there and watch. There's Yannick Bok again. He was quite close at one stage that lap, but nowhere close now as they get towards 20 laps to go. How much further are they going to push this? Are they going to go for mediums again at the end, or are they going to go for hard compound tyres? There's another set of them. As Simičić fakes it again, that's a sign to me, if he's faking it, that he's definitely not thinking about pitting just yet. But he probably wishes that Bok did, because he's applying quite some pressure at the moment.
And it's a sign, if he's pitting this early, he's going to go to the hards at the end. Whereas we're pretty sure race clutch have to go to the mediums at the end. So they're going to be going another, let's say, 3, 4, 5 laps. So if they stay ahead, Simičić and Bok could think about trying to then also copy them and go to the mediums and not have that disadvantage of this slower tyre in the final stint, potentially. But that really just depends on the track position and just what lap Magorgi actually catches them.
It's such a hanging in the balance kind of race. I don't think we've seen all season long here, Cam, a race where someone has dominated from start to finish, where we thought he's going to win right from the start, and they ended up doing so. I know Ewan Magorgi led a lot of laps at Australia, but it wasn't one of those races where you knew he was going to win. He was hounded by Yannick Bok all day long, and that's the closest we've really come to this one. And once again, here at the British Grand Prix, we've got a situation where we do not know who's going to win. We've got multiple strategies with multiple different drivers, with teams working together, and still no idea who's going to win in the last 20 laps.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Although the top 4 have got that breakaway, but look at Brackstock already coming through. He's just got the length of the straight now to gain in the next 19 laps. So there's possibilities. The good thing for Race Clutch, though, is they look pretty good on the tyre wear today. So I think they should be good to have a longer medium stint to the end compared to Brackstock's medium stint to the end. That's going to be the interesting one, as we have seen Simičić come down the pit lane.
As we have with his teammate, Michi Hoyer is also in. So he made Jonas Brackstock go around him and then come into pit lane. That's probably helped his teammate out. Don't know whether that was accidental or on purpose, but Michi Hoyer puts on those hard compound tyres, gets out again, and will be on his way again. Yannick Bok then will go out for one more. Is he going to just drain his battery here and go for this, or are we going to see something different as Jake Dennehan goes through and his teammate? That's a bit of a surprising one, but that was orchestrated between the two.
I'm pretty sure what that is that's Owen saying he's lost a tiny bit of pace, so let Jake go through, don't hold him up, and as a team effectively gain a couple of tenths of a second that way, try and chase down, push Yannick Bok. Now Yannick's in a bit of a sticky situation here, because Yannick's pit, so does he either come in now, go to the hards, cover him off, or does he stay out and try and follow the Race Clutch cars? But then what we're going to be is a situation where there's going to be these 3 on the mediums chasing down Yerne for that track position, and what will eventually be P1 after all the pit stops work out. So interesting couple of laps here, but Yannick is holding the gap. I mean, if anything, that gap's opened up, but no, he chooses to come down and cover off Simičić.
Yeah, I would do so as well. Just drain the battery and then go into pit lane. So Yannick Bok, the current championship leader, covers off one of his main rivals, even though he comes into today with a 21-point advantage and 2 drivers in between the pair. Onto another set of hard compound tyres for Bok. You'd imagine Dennis Jordan would do the same. Jonas Brackstock's getting positions by the lap, but he will be getting undercut here by everybody, which is a slight problem for him. He's got to make sure that he's got those fresh tyres at the end, though, to come through on everybody as well, though. There's Dennis Jordan making his way out for Ferrari. Simičić will be out ahead. Bock is behind by quite some distance, as we expected. Matthew Williams is not too far away either, with his teammate Ruben Mercedes. Not sure whether they're on the hard tyres going to the end or whether they pitted too early for that. Could be in a similar situation to Martin Mergley here. We know that Sander Callas will be pitting again, so will Isaac Hillison, and so will the rest of the top four. Meanwhile, Mitchie Hoyer's come out in a very lively group with Cosmo Picciuto somehow on the soft compound tyres, along with his teammate Patrick Sevitt.
This is one situation where you definitely want to be higher up, so when you come out in the pits you're ahead of all these battles, but Jordan and Hoyer find themselves in this position in this race, but they've got through and they will have the pace now on those fresher tyres. They've got the two Optimals up ahead to try and chase down, but of course pit stops will probably swing that around at some point. So we see the race clutch cars. How long are they going to stay out? How much are they going to let the guys undercut them? Compared to how fresher tyres do they want at the end to have more speed to come and overtake.
So it's the two race clutch cars who are leading the way at the end of lap 35. Jake Dennehan leading Owen McGorgy, and it does seem that you're right, Cam. Dennehan has more speed here, and McGorgy has recognised that, letting his teammate go. Jonas Brackstock is third place, catching them both. Last time around, he set his personal best, a 1 minute 32.6 for him. Is a good 1.6 seconds quicker than McGorgy, for example, and 1.3 quicker than Jake Dennehan. Jan Grankvist is in fourth position on the hard compound tyres, ahead of Isaac Hillison. Then Martin Mergley, who we've got a question mark over whether he'll stop or not. Judging by this race situation, it's looking like he will do. And then we've got Sander Callas in seventh with Jone Simicic. The first driver, I'm 100% confident, will go to the end of the race.
Yeah, Simicic definitely is. Mergley, I also think has to, because of he pit a little bit too early, but I think he just did hards compared to his teammate mediums. Then they'll be flip-flopped, so Mergley will be mediums at the end, whereas Brackstock on the hard compound tyres is my understanding of the situation at this point. But you never know. To be honest, you never know how that one is going to work out, because sometimes the drivers do try some interesting things. But the thing for me now is this the lap? 36 is what I predicted for race clutch, or are they going to go any longer?
Well, it's going to be another lap complete, I reckon, here for race clutch. I think 16 maybe a bit too far for them to go, but they're not going to go together. Good idea for Owen McGorgy to get in, because he's clearly struggling on these soft compound tyres. It's worth pitting in a bit early and splitting the strategy here. If Dennehan's left out there for another lap here, it won't do too much damage to their race. They will still come out in the same order, I would have thought. Where's Owen McGorgy going to come out here, though, and how much overtaking will he have to do? He'll be behind these two. Will he be ahead of the two Optimal cars, though? I think that's pretty important for the race and for their overall results. There is Matthew Williams. He might just get out ahead of this guy here, Owen McGorgy. Is he going to be? No, not quite, but it's quite close. Owen McGorgy stays ahead then. That would suggest, oh no, he stays ahead of Mercedes. Got apologies. So he's now sandwiched between the two Optimal cars. Apologies, it's Matthew Williams who stays ahead. Ruben Mercedes couldn't quite get through. Now this has to be executed very quickly.
Yeah, there seems to be job done in towards Brooklands. Williams, he defended hard against Dennis Jordan earlier on, but to McGorgy, no such defence, and that is basically not lost any time for McGorgy, though he actually is, he did make a little bit of a mess of that coming towards left field, but managed to get the job done and is now on the chase for Yannick Bock. So the gap is going to be about 6 seconds. He's on the fresher tyres, but they're not much younger, really, only 2 laps younger, so Yannick is still going to be able to push to the end on that, and McGorgy's tyres will be dropping off more, as we know the mediums do have a quite a bit sharper drop-off. So definitely an interesting one, as his teammate Jake Dennehan will come down pit road.
Somewhat surprised Brackstock's leaving it quite so late in this situation, because he's just letting himself get undercut here and giving himself even more catching to do later. But anyway, Brabham eSports decide to leave him out a little bit longer. Jan Grankvist even is in at this stage, so maybe he's even trying to go on the softs at the end. That seemingly, to me though, would be a bit outrageous. We'll see if Jonas Brackstock decides to do that though. Where does Dennehan come out here? I'd imagine it will be behind Williams, but I don't know how strong the undercut has been for them. It could even be ahead, I suppose. Owen McGorgy gets ahead, it seems, in the two race clutch battle, and he does stay ahead. So Dennehan doesn't have to make the move on Williams, although I'm not entirely sure Owen McGorgy was slowed up very much by Matthew Williams.
Yeah, certainly was a solid situation there for the race clutch team with that swap around. It seemed to work out quite nicely. McGorgy resumes his position ahead as he was in the previous stint, and it just saved sort of a few seconds from Jake Dennehan and allowed him to go that one lap longer. So that was actually really good team play there by the race clutch team. They were able to orchestrate that very nicely indeed, and now they're ahead of the traffic, and they're already just 5 seconds behind Yannick Bock. So I think their pace is going to be very, very strong. Considering actually Bock is on sort of personal best times, but I don't think it's going to be enough. It just depends. Will they be able to catch before these mediums drop off?
Very interesting to find out here, as there's still plenty of drivers to come into pit lane and figure out where on earth we're going with the end of this race here. The 3 right ahead of Simoncic and Bock stay out, and this is a bit of a problem here for the 2 of them. They are fighting it out between themselves, and it may well be a 2-horse race for the British Grand Prix, but how much of those front 3 ahead going to slow them up here? Isaac Killison has got skin in the game, of course. He'll want Dennis Jordan to have a chance at this one, although that's seeming like a pretty long shot at over 10 seconds away here. Martin Mergley will certainly want Jonas Braksok to be able to catch these 2, and so he might try and slow up at those at the head of the race. Sander Callas doesn't really, but he's trying to get the best result that he possibly can, and to be honest, I'm not entirely sure why he hasn't been in yet, but that's besides the point. We'll see now how quickly Simoncic and Bock can make work of this, as Callas looks to the inside of Mergley into the Brooklands.
And this fighting is actually not helping Simoncic and Bock behind. It's just slowing these drivers down. You would assume they're going to pit fairly shortly, but I don't know. Stranger things have happened as Callas is getting close up to the inside. Late move, huge on the push to pass there. He's going to get through. Mergley's going to have to drop back behind as he's going to go into 4th position. But remember, pit stops still need to be done. If he's going to the soft at the end, they are going to be very fast. Maybe not necessarily for the race win, but maybe still for some solid positions there.
Well, that was pretty close to contact. They were both moving around there on the old pit straight, but through goes Sander Callas, and Martin Mergley will now be 4th. Jonas Simoncic next ahead of Yannick Bock, and now Jonas Braksuk comes into the pit lane. It seems that it's pit stop time for some, but the 3 ahead of the 2 leaders now stay out. So McGorgy and Dennehan catch further. What does Jonas Braksuk do with the final 13 laps of this race? Surely it's going to be another set of mediums. You wouldn't have thought it would go for anything else, and he does indeed put the yellow stripe tyres on. That does beg the question for me here, Cam, why he didn't go to them a bit earlier on.
I think he just wants maximum speed at the end of the race, but I do agree with you on that. Certainly some interesting strategies going on today, as we're now seeing Callas starting to make some moves. Is he going to get the Ferrari as well to take what is currently the lead of the race? Is a bit late. It's going to be in towards Brooklands. Giddison obviously using a lot of push to pass to defend there as well, as he was able to hold on very nicely from that one. But these drivers, they've now got, of course, Simoncic and Bock all over the back of them. So they're going to have to look in their mirrors.
Oh, Simoncic is gone! Simoncic is gone! Smoke coming out of the back of the car for the 4-time champion, and it looks like race favourite Jonas Simoncic is out of the British Grand Prix. An astonishing moment in round 5 of the World Championship, as championship leader Yannick Bock will head through into the net race lead. Jonas Simoncic pulls to the side of the road, and he's out.
How on earth has that happened? That is very interesting as Callas gets close for the race lead once more. But we rarely see that nowadays, and especially with the opening up of the radiators for this season to allow basically the drivers not really to worry about the cooling. So the only thing I can think about is the RPM. There is a few places here where you sort of hold it in 7th gear maybe rather than going into 8th. That's the only thing I can think of is some over revs, and it is somewhat sensitive if you do start smashing on that rev limiter, so maybe something to do with that. But that is huge because we talked about him coming back in the championship, but now this is going to be another 25 points lost.
Absolutely massive for Jonas Simoncic. His second no points scored of the season. Back at the Australian Grand Prix, he was 16th after 4 positions worth of penalty was applied for an incident down at turn 3. Well, this has been a lot more out of his hands. Round 5, no points scored the saving grace for him a little bit is that Manuel Biancalula is only going to score single digits today, I would have thought, but the non-saving grace is the fact that Yannick Bock and Owen McGorgy are already ahead of him and scoring points as well. As I mentioned at the start of the programme, it's been a very long time since Yannick Simicic participated in a championship in which he didn't win. He's won 4 times the World Championship now, the latest being 2023 when he returned to the series and was back to winning ways again. He is down in 4th place right now. He'll be at least 5th, maybe worse off by the end of the day. This is the look from on board.
First gear.
Has he gone down to neutral?
So, yes, basically he's gone to neutral. He's selected first gear. So have a look at that. So there's obviously an issue with his shifter or something going on there where he selected neutral and just naturally upshifted, but of course over-revved the engine from that position. As Callas has taken the lead, but actually they come into the pit lane, so Bock has taken the lead now, and it is a 1, 2, 3, all chasing for the race win. And surely Race Clutch are in favourable position, just 1 second behind, but on the fresher tyres.
It's soft tyre time for these 3 as they came in nose to tail. They exit nose to tail as well. Oh no, it's medium tyre time actually. I would have thought they'd go for the softs, considering that some others have. Callas goes out ahead of Hillison and Mergley, though. This Granqvist and Sevic, surely they're not going to the end, are they? I wouldn't have thought so. Very odd strategy from Jan Granqvist today, by the way. It's a bit left field, but I don't mind it. We'll see where he ends up at the end of the day. But I think it's about those front 3, isn't it, for the race win here. Braxock has got 1 lap better off tyres compared to the Race Clutch drivers in front, but unless they have a monumental fight for the win, surely he's only going to be a spectator.
Yeah, so he's done an extra stop, but he's, as you say, he's only got 1 lap fresher tyres at the end, so he doesn't really have that advantage that he would have wanted. But to be honest, he's pretty much in the same, similar situation as he was back way before when all the strategy started. So it still has worked out fairly nicely. And a solid 4th place. Will he get the opportunity though? Because if these 3 start battling up ahead, they're going to slow down and they are going to start obviously having their own battle, and they'll go slower, and therefore Braxshot will be able to catch up. So definitely an interesting one as we hit the final 10 laps.
Well, the front 3 at the moment means that Yannick Bock may well take 3 podiums in a row here. Can he take 3 top 2s in a row? It would be quite astonishing for him to do so, but don't forget those hard tyres are going to come into their own, and they're not exactly being run over entirely by Race Clutch at the moment. Owen McGorgy comes into today 12 points behind Yannick Bock as the 2 championship leaders going into today's race as we head towards the halfway mark in the 2024 Formula SimRacing World Championship. It's Yannick Bock leading the championship and the race ahead of Owen McGorgy in both the championship and the race. If things work out in McGorgy's fashion, then he could really start to reduce that margin with a race win here today. Even race winning, at minimum, he would reduce the margin by 33%. And we're getting towards the midpoint in the season where we're starting to pick out some contenders. Are we seeing the top 2 being shaping into the protagonists of 2024?
Yes, so 12 points could turn into 16, or it could turn into 8. And that is quite a big advantage if it goes up to 16 points as we get, as you say, to the halfway point in the season. So McGorgy does need to go for this, and is actually very helpful that he's got his teammate behind him as well. Obviously, McGorgy's got to get through himself, but potentially it's not going to be 1 position that Bock is going to lose here. It might be 2, and then there'll be a car in between, which will then turn it into a 7-point swing. So that could be a very, very big game for McGorgy. They can try and work their way through, and they definitely have the speed, but as the laps go on, they're going to be wearing out those mediums even more, and the pace advantage will slowly go towards the Evo.
Janis Braxock is catching them all as well. 6 temps gained on Yannick Bock, 3 temps gained on Denahan, and just 2 on McGorgy. Isaac Killison's going very quick at the moment. He's just set the fastest lap of the race so far, just in behind Sander Callas, who's set a personal best. They're looking for a top 10 or better as Martin Mergley's in again, and he's DNF'd. Well, what has gone on to the other Brabham eSports driver here with focusing in on Janis Braxock and whether he'll catch the leading 3. Well, Martin Mergley is going to be no part of the top 10 today, I'm afraid, because he has retired.
I'm trying to see if there's any sort of penalty at this moment, but that is certainly going to be a big yeah, big issue for him and his team, because they were looking to get some points, but unfortunately, they're not able to come back from that.
Nope, they certainly aren't. So 8 laps to go when we get to the line here. Would have thought that McGorgy will get the DRS here. If he was there at the detection zone, he will. And the answer is yes. He will get the DRS. So does Jake Dennehan on the back straight into Stowe Corner, and that will just reduce the margin further. The tyres equaling out here means that surely it's going to be almost a straight fight between Bock and McGorgy as they both search for their second career FSR win.
It's amazing to see this close battle come in, and I'm very excited to see how this one is going to work out, because it's so tight and McGorgy is going to have a few opportunities here. It's not like this is the last lap lunge. He can work his way through. How much push to pass? How much push to pass is he able to hold on to, Bock, before he runs out and isn't able to hold on?
Well, out through Aintree they go. And so there'll be a chance into Brooklands, but the fact that there's no DRS down there, as there is in real life, means that it's more difficult of a prospect. Braxtock now only 3 seconds away as he closes in on all parties during that last lap. Now, does he try and really burn through these tyres here to get in the DRS zone, or does he try and conserve to get there? I think, to be honest, he's just got to try and get there ASAP, because there isn't that long left in this race.
Yes, there's not one thing we do know from the previous races in Pro and Academy, and just from practice in general. Overtaking is still not the easiest around here, because you have to follow through these fast corners before you get onto the straight. And Bock still has a decent gap there, I tell you what. But how long can he hold on to this? So let's see this. He's getting closer as McGorgy. Not enough to overtake that time around, but he's hounding him. And Bock just needs to hold on to this pressure.
He is hounding him. Is he sitting there and waiting, though, or is he unable to find his way through? We often speak about this early on in the race, but it may well be the case at the end as well. It's not the days in FSR anymore, Cam, where it's almost overly easy to overtake. It's been balanced out where it's possible to overtake, of course, but it's not by any means a given, as sometimes it is. As you mentioned earlier, the push to pass not quite as powerful as it used to be. Only one DRS zone here on the straight. That means that Bock does have a chance to defend. And of course, if he's managed his energy correctly, then he might be able to keep the 2 race crutch cars behind him for the entirety of the remainder in this race.
What is a difficult one, though, is McGorgy can go for a few laps and then save some push pass for a few laps and then go again, whereas Bock can't really save in his position. That's a little bit offline, though, for McGorgy. And what this is all to do is bring Braxtock into this, so they might have to look in their mirrors, and that will help save Yannick a few laps or two. But McGorgy, look how close he is. He's able to hold on very nicely, but we still have 6 laps to go on these tyres.
We certainly do. I only have a feeling, though, that that's going to play into Bock's hands more than anybody else, given that he's on the hards. And McGorgy seems to be finding it difficult to follow. I don't know if he's gone a bit too hard early on here, McGorgy. Is it going to be worth swapping the 2 race clutch cars around and giving Jake Dennehan a go? The problem with that, though, of course, is that Braxtock will be here soon, and McGorgy may lose further ground, not only in this race, but in the World Championship as well, which is what they really can't afford, even if Dennehan does go on to win here. Dennehan can really do with it, of course. He's 29 points behind in the World Championship, and if he wants to come as close as he did 1 year ago and maybe go one better, he ideally does need to start winning some races. But they've all got to be worried about Jonas Braxtock, now only a second behind.
Oh, this is getting close as the laps count down. 6 to go. McGorgy just a couple of car lengths behind. Jake's not going to be overtaking him, of course. Championship-wise, it does make sense. Jake's already missed a race. And with McGorgy being second in the championship behind Bock, it is just a 1v1. And McGorgy is not closer this time around. So is this the fact that he can't keep up, or is this the fact that he's trying to save? I do like for Bock that he's on those hard tyres. He's going to have the consistency to the end of a stint. Whereas McGorgy going to be dropping off, and he has dropped down, not quite out of the 7/10. Still just about in the DRS zone. He's catching up a little bit there on the straights, maybe a push to pass being used, but is certainly just ever so slightly dropping.
Janis Braxtock, I think he's going to be DRS zone by the time we get through the Maggots and Beckett section here. He seems to fly through here decently well, and he should be in range, should he? What was the gap at the detection point? Did he get the close enough? No, not quite, but he's so close now. He'll have 5 laps to try and make 3 overtakes, which admittedly, when you put it like that, just seemed like a relatively tall order for him to get his first win.
It's it's a big task though, considering who those 3 drivers are. Bradshaw going for his first win. Jake and Owen and Yannick as well, just 1 or 2 between them. So it's a pretty low, low historical field, but they are still some of the 4 fastest drivers that we have in the championship this year. Just showing you the level that we have. As don't forget in behind as well, we've got Dennis Jordan and Mitchie Hoyer. They're also on that 2-stop strategy, making it work ahead of the 3 stops in behind, but they are being chased down for that 4th, 5th and 6th place. But McGorgy for the lead on the screen as he closes in, but not enough still to get up towards Yannick.
Yep, still can't get close enough. Worth remembering that Dennehan and Braxuk finished one ahead of the other during last year's British Grand Prix. It was a 7th place finish for Dennehan, just 7 tenths ahead of Jonas Braxuk, who also did a 3-stop last year, by the way. Some very short stints on even hard compound tyres from him last year put him the first of the 3-stop runners in the field. Admittedly, there was only a few of them. Mark Sluter was next, but it was Jonas Braxuk who got to the front. That was 8th place back then. He's at least halved that position this year, but can he get himself onto the podium, maybe even onto the top step of the podium for his first ever World Championship victory? DRS again here. Still can't tell whether this is McGorgy waiting or McGorgy struggling to get through on Yannick Bock.
Yeah, I'm also wondering the same. Is he just saving up some push to pass, using that slipstream, or is he just on the limit, trying to keep up there? He's not wiggling around there on the power though, and he's still at a good point where the mediums should be looking all right. They had good wear on the hards, so maybe they're okay on the tyres, but that 16-lap dash to the end is on the upper limit of what you'd want to do on the mediums for sure, especially when you're chasing down a driver like Yannick for the race lead. But Bradshaw is definitely on the back of Jake Dennehan now, and he needs to be actually just thinking about trying to make that overtake, because if he can get one and maybe get McGorgy with a couple laps to go, then he might be able to get involved with Yannick.
How easy is it going to be to do this though? We've seen not a lot of overtaking all day long, other than obviously pit stop games going on. Braxuk doesn't have that tyre advantage that he was maybe hoping for at this end of the race. Even Yannick Bock's tyres at the very front of the field are going to be pretty decent, because they're hard tyres, of course. They will have retained their life a little bit better than these medium tyre runners right in front of him. He's been pushing on those mediums, of course, as well, to try and get this battle even into fruition here. He hasn't really been able to leave much back for overtaking, if you like. Through the S's they go now, and still more than half a second. Owen McGorgy nowhere near close enough. DRS for everybody, and with 3 laps to go, it's same old story. Yannick Bock still leads the way.
And is this the story of what these final 3 laps coming up are going to be? Or is there another twist in the tail of the British Grand Prix for FSR 24? This track always seems to throw up a slightly different race, a bit of a strategic masterclass maybe from some others, and some big battles come the way around a very fast and flowing track. But it seems like McGorgy has stalled a bit in these last 5 laps. And you see even there, not quite able to keep up within that sort of 0.4 of a second margin that he really needed through turn 1, slide in the rear end as well. Is this a sign that he's pushing, or is this a sign that the tyres are wearing?
Maybe both. As he's trying to get on the power down the Wellington straight. Dennehan as close as he's ever been. Does he head to the inside of his teammate here? No. Dennehan may be having those conversations now with McGorgy. To be honest, with 2.5 laps to go, it may be too late to start exchanging places and seeing who's got the better chance at winning this race, because there's also this championship thing to factor in, as you mentioned earlier, Cam, but also the fact that if you're going to let Dennehan through to have a go here, you're realistically giving him 1 chance, which is almost not worth doing.
I think if you want... Oh, maybe you're right.
Here we go.
As they go side by side, McGorgy lets Jake go through. Now, this is very important, because if Jake can get Bock, then that might slow him down and let McGorgy through. But they're out of DRS now. After that swap round, they're out of DRS. Does Jake have enough speed to get back into it with just 2 laps remaining? And now McGorgy may even drop outside of the podium with Bradshaw getting there. So it definitely seems like Jake has the better tyre wear, despite being in the dirty air for the last 2 stints. At the end of both of them, he's gone through with a few laps to go.
Well, it seemed to me there like McGorgy kicked up some grass and just went a little bit wide, and as a result almost decided to give over the position and give Jake Dennehan a go. But look at the energy that Dennehan has saved up here. Half a second now is the gap between Yannick Bock here and Jake Dennehan. Dennehan is closer than ever. He is all of a sudden looking way more threatening now than Owen McGorgy ever did. McGorgy's going to take quite a few more tenths of a second here to catch up all over again. Dennehan doesn't need to. He's going to get the DRS here on the way towards Stoke Corner and possibly a real good chance to go through.
Oh, this is getting close between them for the race lead. Jake Dennehan, unfortunately can't change the camera right now, but Jake Dennehan is getting close for that for the first place, and I think he's looking good for the win. But Yannick Bock needs to hold on for 1.5 more laps. This is a crucial zone, this next DRS zone coming up, but I think Jake's got enough pace either way.
I think he does. What speed Jake Dennehan has here as he tries to deny Yannick Bock a British Grand Prix victory and his second ever in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. Don't forget, Jake Dennehan has won in the past 2 race victories in the history of the World Championship for him. However, they both came at the Bahrain Grand Prix. Can he win at another location for the first time? As he tries to go down the inside, here goes Jonas Braxok into Stoke Corner at the top of the hill. He can't find his way through. There's 2 distinct battles here. One for the win, one for third place as we go on to the final lap of the British Grand Prix.
Oh, this is close, Jake Dennehan. Was that his one chance to get close, or is he saving up for one final send, the same as Jonas Braxok? The 3-stop isn't going to be enough for the race win today on pace, but is there going to be one final twist to get on the podium at least? He was looking strong in qualifying. Can he change that as we get towards the end of the final lap? Yannick Bock, though, he's got a couple of straights and one more DRS zone to hold on.
Well, the last time Jake Dennehan was in this position, he executed at the Bahrain Grand Prix, of course. At the time before that, the Japanese Grand Prix, he lost out on the final lap to Jurnej Simoncic. Well, today, he's out of the picture. Engine gone for Jurnej Simoncic in a race that he very much could have won. How different would this look with the 4-time world champion in the picture? Well, very possibly it could have been a different story, but now it's Yannick Bock's turn to try and write his name into the history books as a 2-time race winner in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. Either way, he seems like he's going to take a big step forward to a big championship lead on the halfway mark of the 2024 season. Here's the crucial section of corners through the S's for the final time. Jake Dennehan loses some speed here, and the impotence that he had earlier on seems to have gone away slightly here. Owen McGorgy defends here for third place. Jake Dennehan nowhere near close enough. It's going to be a double race podium, but not in the way that they were hoping for. The championship leader, Yannick Bock, is going to go 4 races inside the top 2, and he's going to go back-to-back in victories in the World Championship. Yannick Bock wins the British Grand Prix to bring us to halfway in 2024. He will lead the championship now by 19 points over Owen McGorgy, who can only manage third.
All of the pressure, not just this race, but back at Singapore as well. Drivers chasing him down in the final stints, but he kept the track position both times, and this one especially. With McGorgy, his championship rival, with Jake Dennehan, one of the fastest drivers he have in this championship, he held both of them off on the older, harder tyres and was able to put his car in the perfect position, even though he had the issues a bit early on in the race with maybe being held up a little bit by Jurnej at some point, who unfortunately DNF'd and then obviously removed out of that battle, but he was able to come through all of that and use his push to pass perfectly to hold on to the race lead.
Well, Yannick Bock had never been in the top 2 before the 2024 World Championship season. Now he's been in 4 times in a row, and back-to-back race wins in the Formula SimRacing World Championship has now given him a big championship lead. Manuel Biancalilla comes home for what could be an important 3 points by the end of the season, but he ends up losing 22. He'll be 35 away at the end of the day. Jurnej Simoncic will be an absolutely massive... I'm trying to do the maths on the fly. It seems like 56 points to me. That's an absolutely huge margin to try and get back again. It's Yannick Bock who leads and wins at the British Grand Prix, though, ahead of Jake Dennehan in a grandstand finish. Owen McGorgy and Jonas Praksuk were right there to watch along as well. Dennis Jordan got up to the top 5 there ahead of Michi Hoyer, with Sander Kallas in the top 10 for the first time in a few weeks. Isaac Killison in the top 10 on debut ahead of Jan Grankvist, who loses more ground in the championship, and Ruven Machede, who finishes inside the top 10 as well. Matthew Williams joins him on the other side of the top 10 as teammates. Patrick Sevic gets into the points as well on debut with 2 Team VEM cars inside the points. That's 5 between Bianca Lula and Valeriano. Cosmo Patuto rounds out those point scoring finishes. Scott Flack, Stavros Mercedes and Philip Puska missed out despite getting to the end of the race. Martin Mergley came into the pit lane and retired. Yoni Simitic blew his engine, and further down we saw George Zaragianis have a technical problem and Kostas Van Vukas retire from the race after a crash at turn 1. Well, what an end to that race. It was another 2024 FSR race, Cam, where we just didn't know who was going to win right to the end, and that's 5 races in a row where we've experienced that.
Yeah, that was quite something. And it just shows you once again the strategies this year are working out really well. They're having all sorts of things coming together the final few laps. Really, really enjoyed that one.
We've now joined by Yannick Bock, who is a race winner for the second time in 2 rounds. Welcome in, Yannick. Good to have you with us. How confident were you at the start of that final stint when the guys were stacking up behind you? At the end, you had 3 drivers stacking up trying to overtake you for the win. But at what point did you believe you were going to win? How confident were you in your car today?
I felt good in the car. In the last stint, like in the beginning, I was behind DNA and we lost a bit of time because there were also like a 3-stopping group ahead. So I was fearing like the guys behind because they had like fresh mediums and like the 3-stopper. I think Janusz Brotchuk was very close, but then I don't know, like 6-7 laps to go, I noticed like they don't come really closer, and despite they have DRS, they have no real chance for passing me. And then in the end, I had enough battery left to defend.
Well, just how important was that? Because we saw them pretty much stuck behind you for at that end of the race. Was it a case of if you had battery, you were always going to stay ahead?
Yeah, I think so. It is quite hard to pass on this track because you can't get really close like in the DRS zone because of the SS before. But if you have enough battery, it's quite good to defend. And I think I had even more top speed too in the car. So yeah, it was in the end, it was working out for me.
And just finally, Yannick, you've extended your championship lead now to what will be 19 points over Owen McGorgy. You finished 3rd today. How are you feeling about the second half of the season now?
Well, I'm looking for race. I don't know. I guess in the second half, I have some problems with preparing for races, but yeah, let's see. I will just try to be the best every race, and yeah.
Absolutely. Race by race, the best strategy. Congratulations, Yannick, on becoming a back-to-back winner here tonight, and thanks for joining us as well.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Yannick Bock, the race winner today, just ahead of Jake Dennehan, who also joins us now. Jake, how disappointed are you at the end of that one? It was close, but you couldn't quite find your way through.
Yeah, just a little disappointed. I thought I was going to have a chance at the end, but Yannick defended very well, so all credits go to him.
If you were to get those final few laps back again, would you do anything different, or was it a case of Yannick did all the right things and you weren't going to get through?
Yeah, I don't think I could have done anything different. I had a full battery just overtaking Owen, so I used all of it on the lap afterwards, and then, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't get any use out of it. Yannick was just very fast on the exits, especially on in Chapel. So, yeah, didn't really get any chances to overtake, which is a shame, but P2 is still good.
Absolutely, and it sets you up for the second half of the season now, where you will move up to at least 4th in the standings, maybe 3rd, depending on how the maths all works out, of course. How are you feeling about that second half now, with you and Owen both in with a chance?
Yeah, well, I think my goal really now for the second half is to help more Owen, because he has the better chance of catching P1 in the championship. So, yeah. That's going to be my target now from now on.
All right, we'll see how it goes. Congratulations, Jake, on another podium, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Jake Dennehan there. 2nd place, right ahead of his teammate, Owen McGorgy, who joins us again for the, 2nd week in a row. This time completing the set of podiums for the season with a 3rd place. Welcome in, Owen. Good to have you with us again as well. couldn't quite get through on Yannick there, and then Jake obviously coming through as well in a teammate exchange, if you like. What were those final laps like as you were trying to make those overtakes?
Yeah, it felt like I caught Yannick at the the wrong time, maybe a lap or two earlier. Could have got him, but just as I caught up to the back of Yannick, I started struggling with the tyres, and then I made that mistake at Cops, and Jake had a lot more battery than me, so I let him through and hoped that he could get past, but I'm quite, it was just too tricky to pass Yannick.
Yeah, that seems to be a common theme, I've got to say, between you and Jake, and he said it himself, to be fair. That leaves you now 19 points behind him going into the second half of the season. And of course, you were bitterly close to overtaking him 2 weeks ago as well. How do you think the second half of the season is going to go for the pair of you and for the team as well, with you and Jake both up there in the standings?
I think anyway, it will be better if Jake can do all 5 races. Hopefully he doesn't get injured again. But I think we've got a really good pace between us. We've got really good practice that we do for most races. And I don't really like Silverstone or Singapore, and they've been 2 of my better tracks. So hopefully, because I like the last few tracks, they'll go even better for me.
Hopefully so. There's some great tracks to come as well, of course. We hope to and look forward to seeing you there, Owen. Congratulations on another podium here tonight, your 3rd of the season, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a fortnight's time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Owen McGorgy there, 3rd place here today at Silverstone. Well, Cam, that brings us to the end of what's been a whirlwind first half to the 2024 season. It can hardly feel like a few months, even indeed a couple of months, since we started at the Bahrain Grand Prix. Time for the San Marino Grand Prix, though, in 2 weeks' time, as the 1 week on, 1 week off cycle continues to the end of round 6. We go to Imola, and if people were struggling to overtake at the end of today, then I have a feeling they may be experiencing some of these feelings again when we go racing in another couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's a great track though, and in my opinion, it's probably one of the best on rFactor. It just has such a good flow to it. It's quite a grippy track as well, so the car should be working very nicely, and the high-speed nature, again, like at Silverstone, I think the car should be a lot of fun, and that front straight is very, very long indeed, so there's going to be some interesting things on the setup.
There certainly is. Make sure you join us again in a couple of weeks' time. We'll be live for Academy Pro and World Championship Racing again all throughout the Sunday afternoon, as we always are. 12th of May. Hopefully you will join us again there. Thanks very much to everyone who's been tuned in over the course of tonight. I've been Ewan Leary. Cam Rodger has been alongside me. And until we see you in a couple of weeks' time for the San Marino Grand Prix and the second half of the 2024 Formula SimRacing World Championship, it's goodbye for now.
Hello, I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to Home.
Who's going to break Haystack's world title?
For Mike Gosby! Oh, he's done it! And look at these 2 go! Itchy Hoy's going to do it! His first victory!
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been!